Kal Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Zevachim Daf Yomi Daf Bet Amud Aleph 2A1. We're talking about now korbanot. Remember now we're starting kodshim. Kodshim is the entire concept. It's very, very important to learn kodshim. It's beautiful to learn kodshim. Remember that it's like you're bringing korbanot all the time, right? Every time that you learn kodshim. So now we're going to start Kol Zevachim. Kol Zevachim means all the korbanot. Shenis bechu, which were slaughtered shelo lishman, not for lishma. Which means, for example, you did an olah for a shlamim for an olah. Shlamim is a peace offering. Olah is a burnt offering. Keshenim, it's going to be kosher. Ela shelo alu lebealim l'shem chova, but it wasn't motzi otam yidei chova, which means that since it was not lishma for the sake of that korban, they weren't yotzei chova. Chutz mi pesach, right? Except for the korban pesach vechatat, which become pasul legamre. They become completely disqualified if you're going to do it shelo lishma. Ha-pesach bizmano, the pesach, korban pesach is obviously in the proper time, right? The chatat is going to be all the time, b'chol hazman. Rabbi Eliezer comes and he says, Af Asham, even the korban Asham, which is the guilt offering, right, is the same halacha. Yeah, he says a pesach bizmano, chatat v'asham b'chol hazman. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, says Rabbi Eliezer, a chatat ba'al chet, V'asham ba'al chet, right? Each one comes for a sin. The chatat comes for what type of a chet? The shogeg, chazak baruch, doctor. And the asham comes for what? B'mezid, chazak baruch. So he says, ha'chatat v'asham b'chol zman, Amar Eliezer, Eliezer, ha'chatat ba'al chet, v'asham ba'al chet. Ma chatat psula shelo lishma, v'asham psul shelo lishmo. Third shita. Okay, but the first shita was only Pesach and hatat. Second shita Rabbi Eliezer was Pesach, Hatat, Asham. They added Asham. Third shita, Yosef ben Choni Omer, Hanishchatin leshem Pesach, ulshem Hatat, Pesulim. The ones which are going to be nishchatin for the Korban Pesach and for the Hatat, right, are going to be Psulim. Okay, that's what's happening here. It's going to be Pasul. Shimon, right? So here it's talking about he says also all the other korbanot that you do it for a Pesach and for a Chatat. Meaning, beforehand we were talking about all the other korbanot for doing it for something else. But now we're doing it, what happens if you do another korban for a Pesach? Or another korban for a Chatat? So we said a shlamim with an olah. What happens if you did a shlamim as a Chatat? Or you did an olah as a Chatat? Or you did an olah as a Pesach? Or things like that? So in such a case, it's going to be pasul. The fourth shita, Shimon ache Azariah omen, shechatan l'shem gavoa mehen, as long as they're going to go above them, kesherim. L'shem namuch mehen, psulim. If you go upwards in korbanot, it's kosher. Right? Ma'alin bakot, you go up. If you go down, pasul. You see? Ze avodah shelanu. Tamid la'alot lemala. Our avodah, as long as you're oleh, you're kosher. If you're going down, pasul. He says, Koche Kadashim Keitzal, Koche Kadashim. Shochtan, L'shem Kadashim Kalim. He says, if you're going to do Shechita for Kadashim Kalim, Psulin, Kadashim Kalim, Shechtan L'shem Kadashim Kadashim. HaBechor V'Maaser Shechtan L'shem Shlamim, Kesherim. Shlamim Shechtan L'shem Bechor V'Maaser Maaser, Pesulin. So that's a general rule. You go upwards, kosher. Downwards, Pasul. Capish? Everybody here? Very good. Says the Gemara. Why do I have to teach the entire concept that it wasn't Motzei Otam Yidei Chova? Litni velo alu lebealim l'shem chova. What is, right, that it's kosher ella shelo alu? Just say velo alu lebealim l'shem chova. What is the ella? So he says that Kamash Malan comes teach you lebealim hu delo alu l'shem chova. Ava b'kedushatai yokaimi. That means even though the ba'alim were not Yotzei Chova, they're still holy. They're still a korban. Meaning, I would have thought, say, listen, if they're not going to be Yitzhak Chovah, it's not a korban at all. No. It's a korban. The only thing is, the Baalim, they're not Yitzhak Chovah. You're not allowed to change them. The Rava says, so that means if you have a korban olah, that they did the shechita shelo lishma, you're not allowed to zorek et dama shelo lishma. There's a svara in a pasuk. Says what? Because you changed in one of them, now you're going to continue changing in everything else? For sure not. Meaning you changed in the shechita. How many avodot are there? How many types of avodot are there in a korban? Shchita, kabbalat adam, receiving the blood, hola, holacha is transporting the blood, and then zrikat adam, right? Zrikat adam, 4, right? So he's coming and saying like this. Right now, when you come and you did disqualified, right? You did the shchita disqualified. Why are you now going to come and do everything else disqualified? But if you want, you could also say it's a pasuk. Hi nedava, right? Nederu says this nedava is a neder. Betamu bet, to be or not to be. Yeah. So he says hanederu im kemasha nadarta asita, but rather just like you were nodarta asita, ye neder. If not nedava, it's going to be a nedava. But can you change a nedava? Meaning, at the end of the day, it's going to become like a nedava, but nothing else, right? But that's it. So Amaleh Ravina le Rav Papa says Ravina to Rav Papa, Lo avit kaban beurta bitchuma bei chermach. He says Chaval that you weren't there last night in Shabbat, right? Why? Because they had the Tchum Shabbat of the Bet HaMidrash, right, which is of this place, and therefore you couldn't come to the Bet HaMidrash to hear the words of Rava. Because Rava asked a contradiction, and he answered it. What does it mean now? So Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah, Kol Zevachim shenizbechu shelo lishman. All the Zevachim, the Korbanot that they did shelo lishman, Tamad shelo lishman. The reason is because they did it shelo lishman. Hastama, but mashma. Aluna mila be'alen nishim chova. It's going to be yotzei chova for the Baalim. Alma stama nami kilishon nandami. That means stama is lishma. That means if you bring a korban stam, stam. If you bring a korban stam, are you yotzei chova or not? So here it's mashma stam. Yes, stam means I didn't do it l'shem for something. I just brought the korban. Why are you bringing? You didn't think about it. It's stam. So he says, Aval ulminhi, we have a contradiction. Kol haget shenichtav shelo l'shem isha pasul. If you write it not for the woman, it's going to be pasul. Stam enami pasul. So it's mashma stam is pasul. Meaning the get has to be written lishma, for her sake. It can't just be written stam. There's no stam. Tzarich להיות bishvila, for her. So the stama is the stira. Everyone understood the stira? One more time. You have 2 cases. You have, right? Because also there's lishma by a korban and also lishma by a get. Right? So therefore like this. You have lishma, lo lishma. But now you have stam. Lishma means for her sake. Lo lishma means not for her, for somebody else. But what about stama? Stama just means I'm writing it for divorce. For who? Whatever. I didn't think about it. That's called stama. So but it doesn't matter. But I didn't pay attention. What do you mean her name? You know how many names? You know how many women could be called Rachel bat Leah, or I don't know what. Now there's no last names.
So,
you know what I mean?
So a man can cup exactly the person. I just did it stam.
No, because he's not the one that writes it. Doesn't help. That's why. That's why you need the people that are there, the sufrim, that everything is done lishma. The bedin. Well, depends. Sometimes they could write it themselves, and that's why you need a bedin nowadays. That they're the ones that are in charge of everything to make sure that everything's done properly. It's not that easy. So what happens? Here you have a stama. What's a stama? It wasn't done lishma, but it wasn't done lo lishma. So too they have the korban. A korban you have lishma, right? Which means this is for a chatat, and also lishimba, and then you have lo lishma. It's going to be a shlamim. But if you have stama, what do you bring as a korban? You didn't really pay attention to what you were doing. You brought a korban. So it's called stama. So he asked a contradiction between one stama and another stama. So he says, Veshani, and we answered, Zvachim bestam lishman omdim. A zevach, a korban, is stam lishma. Isha bestam elav. But a woman, she's not legirushin. Meaning when you have a regular woman, she's not in order to divorce her. You heard it? It's not just stam, a woman is not there for divorce. A woman gets married, she's supposed to stay married. It's not just stam for divorce. Fine. So says the Gemara, Uzvachim b'stamak shenim minalan. How do you know that it's going to be kosher? So if you're going to tell me that, which we learned in the Mishnah, all the sacrifices which were sacrificed shelo lishma, velo katanya, we didn't learn shelo nizbechu lishman, right? That it was not nizbechu lishman. Get nami aktani, we learned kol get shenichtav shelo l'shem isha pasul, velo katani shelo nichtav l'shem isha pasul. Meaning, if you're going to tell me it's the way of the terminology, how it was written down. Did it say that it was not done that, or was it done that? Meaning, does it say any get which is written not l'shem isha pasul, or is it written shelo nichtav l'shem isha pasul? Right? And when it's not written l'shem isha, that's already pasul. So ela, but rather mehad tanan. Right? We learned from the Mishnah. Keitza lishma. How is it lishma lo lishma? L'shem Pesach l'shem shalamim. Right? That's a tama d'aman l'shem, because he said it. That's called lishma. Ha l'shem Pesach stama. Right? It's going to be kasher. Alma staman kelishna dami. So you see, stam is considered lishma, meaning the fact that you did stam, that you didn't say l'shem Pesach, right? But that l'shem, even if you did it, that's considered lishma. So din mashanehatan damin and kol oseh dat rishona will say. He says, if you already did it, you're doing it on the same mindset. Meaning like this: if you're bringing a korban Pesach, and now you don't say anything, but when I asked you this morning, what are you bringing? You're bringing korban Pesach instead of Pesach. So therefore, when you're bringing it al data rishon, meaning that which you wanted to do at the beginning, even though right now you didn't say anything. But this is